All right, so let's have a look at the first assessment. I received a couple of inquiries from students about the first assessment. First of all, of course, welcome to the course. And in this unit, we'll be learning the key concepts of marketing, such as the concept marketing itself, what we mean by marketing, and this will be covered a lot in module 1, and this also is relevant to our assessment 1. Okay, we'll also be learning about consumer behavior, the marketing research, strategic marketing like STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning, and also, of course, the popular marketing mix variables. Okay, now this assessment 1 is due in week 4. Please look at the timetable I gave you. Pardon me. Since there are 2 parts of assessment 1, the first part is actually about our own posting. Original posting. Okay, that one is due on Monday. That one is due on Monday. So Monday, week 4, I think it is on the 25th of June. And then the second posting is actually your feedback to your to the other students. 2 feedback. Okay. Feedback to 2 students posting. So on Monday, we expect your friends also submitted their own posting, upload their own posting, and so select 2 and you give feedback. Okay. Now, in terms of selecting 2, my preference is to give the balance. So select the one that has not received or has received the least number of feedback. Okay, so that's basically assessment 1. Okay, I received a comment, a question about whether the second one here is assessment 2. No, it is still assessment 1. Okay, so assessment 1 has 2 components. All right, again, let's jump to the questions that we need to address. The first one is actually about define the concepts and processes in marketing and why it is important to your chosen product, service, organization, or institution, approximately 250 words. Okay, and the second one is actually about the marketing environmental forces. Okay, and its impact. Well, there are several marketing environmental forces that include macro and micro environmental forces. You just need to select one. Okay, do you have to select more than one? You don't. I would rather you select only one, but you analyze it comprehensively. Okay, rather than you analyze, you put up 2, 3, or maybe more than that, but it is going to be shallow, and that comes back to theoretical discussion. We don't need that. We need you to be able to explain briefly about the theory and also implement the theory. And after that, provide, the next one is actually about providing comments on what you consider the company should do in response to the environmental force. Okay, so questions 1, 2, and 3 are basically about your part 1 of the assessment. Okay, I'll just write it here. Part 1 of the assessment are basically questions 1, 2, and 3. Okay, part 2 of the assessment, which is due on Sunday, week 4, is actually question 4. Okay, so provide feedback for 2 students. Well, you can target around 150 words for each response. That makes another 250 words, basically. 250 words in total. Okay. I apologize. I think for this one, we are targeting 150 words in total for your response. 250 words in total. Okay, I was correct. So 250 words in total. So roughly around 100 words for each posting. That makes 250 words in total. Okay. All right. So that's basically assessment one. And let's have a look at the other assessment that we need to do. Now I'm going to share to you a brief timetable that I have posted in the announcement board. So this is us. We start, we embark the journey together, okay? We embark the journey together, and we are going to have another session in week 3. Week 4, it is due again. I believe you now look at my timetable. If not, please let me know. And assessment 1 is due in week 4. There are 2 parts of assessment 1, Monday and Sunday. And we have another session in week 5. Now for week 5, I will have I've prepared a Kahoot game to help us prepare the quiz, which is basically the assessment 2 that is due 2 weeks after that. Now that Kahoot game can only you can only participate if the administrator, in this instance me, is accessing Kahoot. Right? And I can't access Kahoot, 24/7. So if you want to participate in the Kahoot game, you got to come to the online tutorial. Okay, I'll give you the password by then. Okay? And then assessment 3 is due on Friday, 24th of August, 2018. So please ignore the announcement on the assessment brief. I think the announcement, the assessment brief, suggests Sunday. It should be Friday, actually. It should have been written as Friday. Okay. Now let's have a look at the briefly assessment 3. I know it is still in the early stage, but I just normally take people through with the overview of the assessment, and then we discuss them in more detail approaching the deadline. Okay. Assessment 2 is basically a quiz, and you can have a look at the brief, but assessment 3 is actually about similar to marketing plan, if you like. It's not a full-blown of marketing plan because it doesn't require you to outline the financial projections like what marketing plan normally includes. Again, it is not due on Sunday, it is due on Friday, week 12. Please refer to the timetable. And the tasks include the environmental forces, brief introduction, company background, environmental forces in he, and also marketing strategies. Okay, so that's basically assessment 3 in a nutshell. In terms of marketing strategies, we are going to learn STP and also marketing mix variables. Okay. All right, so that's basically the assessments overview in a nutshell. Any questions? Any questions from you, Victoria? Oh. Hello, Victoria. Any question from you? All right, so that's the assessment in a nutshell. Now let's have a look at the the assessment one. Okay, let's discuss this in more detail. Okay, I just copy and paste the questions. Okay, copy and paste. Oops, sorry. I will just copy and paste the questions again and to my Word documents so we can discuss this in more detail. Okay. Okay, now I'm sharing the new ones here. I copy and paste here, and oh, okay, it doesn't look correct. Okay, again, my recommendation is to start the introduction. You introduce the company, and the product or service, and the product or service briefly. Okay, so just briefly. Okay, and then because you're going to use this company for your analysis later on. Okay, and the next one is to define the concepts of marketing and marketing process. Okay, and after that, marketing environmental analysis. Okay, and the impact of marketing environmental environment. Okay, so that's basically part A, the first part, and part 2, you're talking about feedback to your to students postings. Okay. All right, and the other thing is so that's basically the assessment in a nutshell. Assessment 1 basically. And what I would like us to do is now to discuss the presentations, module 1 basically. And look, in the next 10 minutes or so, we need to leave the meeting room and come back to the meeting room again by clicking the same link to continue our meeting. Okay. All right. So I do expect that you can see my slides, marketing fundamentals, introduction to marketing. Okay, and look, when it comes to marketing, a lot of people say that marketing is actually about advertising or promotion or selling. Well, marketing is not. If we think about a company, for instance, let's say we set up a firm. Okay, we my apologies. All right, I'll just clear that. Okay, if we set up a firm, okay, and this is our firm will definitely not live alone, because it will interact with someone else. In this instance, the other party that we need to interact ultimately is the customer. Okay. Now, how do we interact with the customers? Well, the firm and the customers actually interact in what we call as the exchange process. Right? Exchange process. So that is actually the keyword that we want to include, or the essence of marketing that we want to include in our explanation of marketing concepts. Okay. And how do we interact? How is the exchange process going? Well, let's zoom into the exchange process itself, okay? When two parties are engaged in the exchange process, we have what we call as, we need to have something to offer, otherwise we can't get involved in the exchange process. In this instance, the company has the offerings, and the customers has what we call as needs and purchase power, okay? So we can drive the exchange process, okay? All right, now, when the customers say they like what we offer because what we offer meet their needs, we actually have created value. We actually have contributed to solving the problem, okay, of the customers, okay? And it doesn't have to be as high tech as Apple, Google, or medical device companies. Okay, doesn't have to be like that. It can be as simple as laundry detergent. It can be as simple as nappies for babies that absorb liquid better, for instance. Okay, so that could also be contributing to the customer's problem. Okay, solving customer's problem. All right. So if that happens, then the customers will say, "Yep, I'm going to adopt it." So they purchase what we offer for them. Okay, so they purchase that. Okay, and if that happens, we actually have created value for the firm as well. Okay, so that's actually an illustration, basically, in terms of what marketing is. So, in other words, if you look at that, we have several things in here when it comes to defining marketing. First, we need to we can see that it is actually the process of creating, communicating, delivering, okay, offering that has value for customers in the exchange process. Okay, so there are a few keywords that we need to consider when it comes to defining marketing. Okay, right. So let's move on to understand the process. Okay, we have a few things in here, and some people say marketing is selling and advertising. Okay, well, now this one here is actually the old definition that the American Marketing Association published using organizational function. The new definition of the American Marketing Association has converted organizational function into a set of activities, institutions, processes, and so on and so forth, right? Now that has a massive implication for us, changing organizational function to sets of activities in marketing concepts, okay? Because of these changes, actually, we acknowledge that marketing is not only about marketing department. Marketing is actually about the entire organization, driving these activities, processes for what? For creating, communicating, delivering value for customers, right? So if you need some more information about marketing definition, please look at the American Marketing Association's website. You can type it on your Google search box. American Marketing Association's definition of marketing, okay? All right, like any other business function, marketing also has process. And if you look at the process in our e-text, by the way, you should be able to access your e-text. Okay, we use what we call art pie concept, but you don't have to use the art pie concept here to explain marketing process. You can also refer to the American Marketing Association's definition of marketing that we discussed before. Okay, based on the American Marketing Association's definition, we know that there are few words in there that includes create, communicate, deliver value for customers. Okay, Well, based on that process, based on that concept, we can also say marketing process include understand, okay, create, and communicate, and the next one is deliver, okay, and we go back to understand again. Okay. So understand is actually about the marketers or marketing organizations attempt to understand the consumers, understand the competition, understand the environmental forces that leads us to the opportunities actually. So the outcome of your environmental forces should lead to the opportunities, okay? Based on that, we create the offering. Here we create the offering. Okay, what do you want to offer? What product do you want to offer? What service that you want to offer? Okay, after we create that, we need to communicate it to the customers to raise the awareness of the product or offering, and also to stimulate trial from the customers. Okay, and we have to deliver it. That means we need to that means we need to implement the marketing mix variables, the product, price, place, promotion that we designed before for the customers, right? And after that, we come back to the understand again, because after we deliver, we should be able to learn something, what works, what doesn't work, okay? All right, so that's basically week one in a nutshell. And let me know if you have questions. The next thing I'd like to do is to basically discuss the second one. Oops. Okay, I'd like to. The next thing I'd like to discuss is the one related to our marketing environmental forces. Okay, I'll minimize that because I'd like to share the other one. There you go. Okay, now in this module, in week two, we are actually covering a number of marketing environmental forces. Okay, and in saying that, we include the macro and micro environmental forces. Okay, macro and micro environmental forces. Okay, so there are two types of environmental forces, macro and micro. Okay, and let's have a look at the micro environmental forces first. Okay, micro environmental forces. Okay. Micro environmental forces includes the company itself or the marketing organization, okay, the customers, the competitors, okay, the suppliers, public, and marketing intermediaries or the middleman. Okay, so it includes these guys. Okay, now what we need to show when we analyze them, when we analyze the company, customers, and so on and so forth, is basically to show how they affect the value that we create, how they affect the value that we offer for the customers. Okay, so that's the thing that we need to focus on. Okay, let's have a look at them. Okay, let's have a look at them in this presentation. Okay, we have microenvironment. Okay, which is basically within the industry. That's why we say it is microenvironment. all actors within the industry, like these guys here, the company, suppliers, and so on and so forth. There are 6 of them. They are what we call as the within industry environment or micro environments. Okay, the company, for instance, everybody in the company works hand in hand to offer, to create the offering, deliver the offering, communicate the offering that has value for customers in the exchange process. Okay. So we work together with the other departments, finance, R&D, and so on and so forth. Okay. And there you go, finance, R&D, purchasing. Okay, so we work hand in hand with the other people to make sure that we can create competitive offering actually. All right, so we can create superior value for the customers. Okay, and that includes, and the next thing that we need to work is basically with the marketing intermediaries. The marketing intermediaries helps us to promote, sell the products, communicate the products, okay, ship the product from our warehouse to the customer's warehouse and eventually reaching the final consumers, okay? And we also work with the marketing services agency, for instance, to help us designing the value for the customers. Okay. All right. And the customer itself is the focal point in the value creation in marketing process. Therefore, we need to focus on understanding the customers, their needs, their trends, their preferences. Okay. That helps us to understand what offering that we have to design. Okay, and customers include these guys here: the consumer market, business market, reseller market, the government, and also the international market. Public is interesting. They are not a target market, but their voice affects the value that we create. Remember, when we analyze micro-environmental forces, we need to look at how they affect the value that we create for the customers. Okay. All right. So suppliers. The other one is suppliers. Where's my supplier? Okay. Let's look at here. Okay, suppliers is an interesting one. In the olden days, we say that suppliers, we say to our suppliers, for instance, customer is king, so we are their king. Well, not necessarily. In today's business landscape, we actually collaborate with the suppliers. Okay. In what way we collaborate with the suppliers? Well, we get the raw materials, packaging materials, and in some cases we also get the manpower from the suppliers. Okay, so for your assessment one, you can select any environmental forces, either supplier, customers, a competitor, and so on and so forth. Right. In fact, you can also select the macro environmental forces. Okay, let's have a look at the macro environmental forces. There are 6 elements as well under macro environmental forces that include demographic, economic, natural, technological, political, and cultural forces. Okay, well, some people refer to what we call as pests or pestle or steep or step. They are the same thing. Okay, pest is the acronym of political, economic, social, culture, and technological. Okay, the same thing as pestle, steep, step, or these forces. Okay, now let's briefly look at this one. Okay, the purpose of understanding macro environmental forces is to understand the impact. Okay, how they affect us. Okay. And the impact can only be positive only or negative only. Okay, it can be both. Okay, or negative only. Okay, and the impact revolves around the costs, whether the cost is increasing or decreasing, that affects our profitability. Okay, or the impact can also be around the consumption, whether the consumption from consumers would be increasing or decreasing, that affect our revenue. Okay, so that's basically the purpose of analyzing past or macro environmental forces. All right. Well, in some instances, we may say that it's we actually find that this element here is neutral. Well, if that's the case, then there are two possibilities in here. The first one is probably we haven't researched well enough, or there is no impact from that factor. So you need to skip to the next factor within the same group. So if, let's say, under political, we have regulations, for instance, the government, and the government stability is another one. For instance, the political system, okay, that's another one that we can also analyze. If political system does not affect our industry, then that's fine. So ignore it, move on to the next one. Probably there is something new in the regulation or legislation that we can analyze. Okay, and under economic, for instance, we can analyze a number of factors such as the GDP, the inflation rate. Look at the tradingeconomics.com, for instance, to look at the unemployment rate, for instance, or the income trend, for instance, and analyze them. Okay, what is the impact if consumers' income is increasing? We know that from economic perspective, economic factors affect the consumer spending and purchase pattern. Okay, so we can analyze the GDP trend, or inflation rates, or the RBA target cash rate or interest rates. Is it increasing or decreasing? If the RBA slashing the interest rates, in theory, we expect consumers to have more money that they can spend. That they can spend. Okay, so there's a likelihood that our volume will increase or consumption will increase, or at least they maintain the volume. Okay. The same thing to social. You can analyze the lifestyle of the customers, the demographic profile, whether it is changing or not. We know that in Australia we have aging population. If we look at the population pyramids in Australia, we have aging population. So look at that, whether it brings impact or not. And we also know that there's a growing trend of double income society in Australia, where mom and dad work basically, and so it gives us some indication in terms of impact to consumption. Okay. All right. And from technological perspective, the big news about technological perspective is basically about the advancements of technological process that helps us accelerating the new product development or servicing the customers better, for instance. Okay, people keep developing it. So if you are keen on technological analysis, you can refer to this one. Or you can also look at the development of digital technologies. Okay? One thing I'd like to highlight to you when it comes to the analysis of macro environmental forces, please make sure that you analyze the environment, not the company's action. Okay? Focus on analyzing the environment, not the company's action. Okay, I noticed that a lot of people say, well, from technological perspective, this company has been doing this. Now, this is not the one that we want from environmental forces. Okay, from political perspective, some papers suggest that this is what the company does to comply with this legislation. This is not the one that we want. What we want is to analyze what has happens in the political environment. Let's say the government introduces new legislation, or the government introduces new taxation system, for instance. Okay, the budget in May gives us some insights in terms of the impact to some groups of customers, all right? Whether they are, if they are our main customers, then we will be affected, okay? So that's one that we want to look at, not the company's action, okay? All right, now let's have a look at the, let's go back to assessment one. We have discussed this, okay? Let's look at the assessment one in more details. So we discussed the, we have discussed briefly about what we need to do, okay, to address the task, okay. Okay, so part one is basically about these guys here, the first three questions. Okay, let's look at the second question. Okay, sorry, question one. Define the concepts of marketing and marketing processes. Please refer to what marketing is. Okay, make sure that you define it. You may want to start, marketing is what, okay? So please look at the American Marketing Association's website to understand marketing concepts, to understand the definition of marketing. You must have the definition, okay? And marketing process, look, the term process actually includes steps, okay? So you need to explain what the steps are, okay? You can look at the art by model, explain art by model, as we have in our PowerPoint presentation slides, and you can also look at the 4 steps, the 5 steps that I explained before: understand, create, communicate, deliver, and back to understand again. Okay, that is fine. Okay, and you can. The next one is to discuss the marketing fundamental and explain why marketing is important for the organization. Remember, you go when you explain this, you go back to the concept of marketing. Okay, what is marketing? So that helps you to understand the essence of marketing. Okay, and marketing environment. The next question is actually just right here. Let's say marketing environment, marketing environmental analysis that includes micro or macro environments. Okay. There are 6 micro environments and 6 macro environments. You just need to select one factor, okay? But please analyze specifically, okay? If you analyze economic, for instance, please show the GDP, specifically the GDP, for instance, the unemployment rate, for instance, target cash rate of the RBA or the interest rates, okay? And so on and so forth, okay? And explain how they affect the company, okay? And what the company does, okay? How the company should respond, okay? How the company should respond to it, okay? Right. Now, I would also recommend you to adhere to the academic literacy standard, including references. We use IPA referencing style, and please also use the headings and subheadings. Headings and subheadings basically shows not only to meet the formal writing style standards, but also shows we understand what we are trying to we understand how we connect the concepts to the content. Okay. Feedback to students posting. Please make sure we are specific in our feedback. Okay. You can use examples of certain lines of the other students posting. Okay. Relate to theory. Okay. And cover both positive and constructive feedback. You can use the sandwich approach when you give feedback. Okay, the sandwich approach actually includes the positive feedback first. I understand you have done this, which is good. You also have covered that, which is great. Okay, and then you include the constructive feedback. And I would recommend you to do this. I would suggest that you also cover this. You relate to the theory, and in doing so, please make sure you also relate to the theory. And the encouragement. The last one is basically the encouragement, another positive feedback. Okay. All right, so that's basically our first online tutorial nutshell. Any questions so far?
No, I don't have any questions, Eddie.
All right, fantastic. Look, thanks a lot for your participation. I will end this session. If you have questions, you can send me an email. Email is faster for me because I can access it from my mobile phone. Yeah, class message is a bit harder for me because I need to access the portal, especially my my own laptop's not here with me.
Yeah, no problem at all. I can email you if you have any questions.
Right, fantastic. All right, all the best.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.